Is renting always a waste of money? The answer is no. My name is Koukun, and I'm a real estate investor and realtor, and I live in St. Catharines, Ontario. So why is renting not always a waste of money? So in my opinion, I feel that renting makes sense in certain circumstances. So for example, right now I own 7 rental properties. However, I live in a home that I am renting from someone else, believe it or not. So why does this make sense? So in my situation, I was moving from Mississauga, about a city 30 minutes from Toronto, to St. Catharines, which is about an hour 15 drive from the city of Toronto. And when I was moving here, I made the decision to rent a home from a friend of mine for the first 2 years. So I decided I'd rent a home, see what it's like, find out sort of the area and where I wanted to live while I ran my business as a realtor, as well as a real estate investor looking for properties that I could purchase and rent out that cash flow, right? So in my opinion, there are certain circumstances where renting makes sense. One of which is like my situation where you're moving to a new place, you're not sure about the area, and you want to live in a place before you make the commitment to buy, because there are a lot of transaction costs, not only to buy but to sell. So if you ever buy a home, live there, decide you don't like it and decide to move, you are spending quite a bit of money to make that transaction. Versus if you were to rent a place, you don't like it, there are many ways you can get out of a lease, move, and you don't lose that much, right? The second situation is if, for example, you're someone who lives in a city where it is quite expensive to buy. For example, the city of Toronto or many of the places sort of close to the city of Toronto, it may make sense to rent a place, live affordably, and save your money and buy a rental property in a city like St. Catharines or Hamilton or one of the sort of periphery cities where the prices are much less, but the rental amounts are somewhat comparable. So these are properties you can buy and make quite a bit of cash flow and use that cash flow to sort of supplement your rent in a sense. For example, one of my first properties that I bought is a property that's rented out to 6 students. So initially, me and my brother, we moved in to that property, rented out 4 bedrooms, and that covered, and the 4 rooms that were rented out covered the cost of that home. So that's where I sort of lived before I moved here. And now I've rented out that bedroom that I was living in, and that bedroom is rented to a student right now for $600 a month. That $600 is supplementing the rent that I'm paying on this home. So I'm using my rental properties to cover part of the rental expense of my personal residence. And it's allowing me a little bit of freedom. You know, I don't feel as constrained by paying the whole rental amount. So if you get the gist of it, so renting can make sense. I would not recommend it as a long-term play. If you're one of those people that decide you want to rent a place for the next 20-30 years while sort of setting aside savings into mutual funds or sort of stocks and bonds or some sort of regular investments to try to outsmart the housing market because you feel that a crash is coming, that is a very difficult game to win. There are people that have done it, so I will not say that it's impossible, but I feel it's a very difficult situation where you can get ahead doing that versus the opposite, because most of my clients, believe it or not, are people who live in sort of the greater Toronto area where they have a personal residence, they've lived in for like the last 10 years, the prices have appreciated a lot, they've paid down the mortgages a lot, and they are using the equity in their home to go out and buy rental properties in cities like Hamilton or St. Catharines. So because they're doing that, now they're able to leverage the equity they've built in their personal home to go out and build a real estate portfolio that is now going to pay them an income. And they're not spending anything out of their own pocket per se. They've bought a home, they've lived in it, they've enjoyed it, they've made equity in it, and now they're using it to go out and create wealth. So most of my clients are doing that. So I would say that, you know, it's not a bad position to be in, right? So again, there are situations where renting makes sense, where owning makes sense. I feel in the long term, owning always makes sense, or owning rental properties while you rent your own home for a long-term strategy. It sort of makes gets you to the same place. If you own 10 rental properties that are worth whatever, $2 million, $3 million, and you're renting a place for say $2,000 a month, you're getting the mortgage pay down of a $2 million rental property, and you're allowing a $2 million rental property to appreciate. So I highly doubt you would not get ahead by doing something like that. But again, my opinion is simply rent if it's significantly expensive to purchase, or if you're moving to a new area, but own if you're going to live somewhere longer term, and try to build equity, whether it's through buying rental properties or whether it's through buying your own home. So I hope that helps. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment below. I'm always happy to answer any of your questions. And I'm always open to hearing suggestions. What do you think on renting versus owning? And was there anything I missed? Always feel free to comment. As always, take care, and wish you the best.